URL unknown to Google does not mean that Google has never seen the page or the content or never crawled or indexed it. It means that it has zero priority in the crawling and indexing architecture of Google systems. And so sometimes when you check a page that's been live for a long time and it says URL is unknown to Google, it's not that they haven't seen or crawled it or indexed it, it's that they just do not care about it anymore. They have forgotten it. It's not a crawling problem. Google has decided to just actively forget and de-index those pages and now is giving it zero crawl priority. We can see really interesting things that happen, like the 130-day indexing rule. Like after 130 days of being recrawled, a page has a 99% chance of being de-indexed. The signals around that page, around that site section, it's just, what's the point? Because nobody's visiting, nobody's linking to it, nobody's searching for it. So we're just going to actively de-index it or no longer select it for indexing. So it's not eligible to put in search results. I talked about how site sections and site quality overall kind of impacts on whether pages stay in the index. There's another phenomenon, which I think lots of enterprise SEOs deal with all the time, where the actual authority of the domain keeps pages in the index that contribute to the site quality overall, that actually impact on the organic search visibility. I think that long-term indexing is the actual problem when you're asking, is indexing a problem? I don't think indexing generally, getting indexed new pages, I think it remaining eligible to appear in search results is the problem. That's the shift you need to think about, because that shift can help you better understand and segment and look at your website in a different way.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Search with Candour. I am Jack Chambers Ward, your host as usual, and I'm joined this week by a very special returning guest. Adam Gent is back on the show after nearly 3 years away. A lot has happened in those 3 years, and Adam and I get into some really interesting discussions about how Google's index actually works and why you should be monitoring your index more closely, especially if you have a large website. If one of your clients is a huge enterprise kind of client, or the sites you're working on are big, millions of pages, millions of URLs kind of websites, you really should be paying more attention to your indexing. And Adam has a brilliant tool called Indexing Insight. We get into all the details about that as well. And also, Adam will be speaking at Search Norwich XL on this very subject, how Google manages its index, on the 24th of September 2026. If you want to come and see Adam, if you want to come and see people like Martin Splitt, Julia Panozzo, Arnaut Hellmans, Estella Franco, and so many more brilliant speakers, just click the link in the show notes, check out Search Norwich XL down below. Like I said, it's on the 24th of September 2026, and you can come and join us for a fantastic all-day SEO conference right here in Norwich. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe and do all the usual YouTube kind of stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, you can rate and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. I hugely appreciate the comments you guys have been leaving on Spotify and YouTube. I always appreciate questions or little, yay, finally this guest has arrived on the show and things like that. I always appreciate your feedback and interactions there as well. Anyway, without any further ado, here is my conversation with Adam Gent, all about why you should be paying more attention to your index, especially if you're running a large website. My guest this week has over 15 years of experience in SEO across in-house and agencies. You may recognize him from appearances on SEO Unplugged, Majestic's SEO In series, and of course his previous appearance on this very show back in September 2023. He'll also be speaking at Search Norwich XL later this year in September 2026. He is the co-founder of Indexing Insight. Welcome back to Search with Candour, Adam Gent.
Hi, Jack. Thank you for having me on.
Welcome back, mate. It's lovely to have you back on. I feel like you and I haven't caught up in a long time. It's nice to find.
Well, 2023 apparently. Like that seems a long time ago. I was like 2023. Jeez.
I did look it up. It is from recording date to recording date. It's 974 days since we last.
Oh my goodness.
Together. Yeah.
Oh God.
I know.
I'm really bad at marketing. I'm really bad at marketing. I should have come back earlier. I should have asked earlier. Jeez.
Well, we bumped into each other. No, you've spoken at Brighton SEO and a few.
I've spoken around. We bumped. I know. But podcasting and bumping into each other at a conference is not the same thing.
Exactly. And of course, I mentioned Indexing Insight there most recently, and I know you're working on some very cool things, some very new additions to that tool, new services and things like that as well. And we're going to be talking about why Google index monitoring still matters for large websites in 2026. And as I said to you just before we started recording, I feel like the state of index monitoring is kind of in a weird, you either really care about it or you don't know it's happening at all and you have no idea. So how are you feeling about the kind of general awareness of where most SEOs, where most websites are in terms of, are people aware of what Google is doing with indexing their websites?
I mean, not particularly, if I'm being honest. Like there are other tools that offer this service, but Indexing Insight, just to context for anyone who doesn't know, Indexing Insight is a B2B SaaS tool that me and a good friend developer, a friend I have, built together with customers, like large websites. We broke it, fixed it, broke it again, and kept breaking it until it worked, and released it as a B2B software tool that anyone can use. If you want to monitor indexing at scale and get more data out of your inspection API, we can help you monitor up to 1 million pages. And there are different tiers that you can go into if you want to monitor less. And that has allowed us to see some unique insights and do studies that are available on the Index Insight blog, research that we've done that blew my mind when we did it. But there isn't really a category of index monitoring. Like it's a feature that no one's quite solved. Like the big companies, like the enterprise companies, shall we say, of web crawling, monitoring, etc., haven't really cracked, because it's you have to spend a lot of time to kind of crack it and be really interested in it, like I am. And we solved it. Well, we solved it to a point, but yeah, and it isn't really a thing that most people monitor. Really, they'll use scripts to like get limited samples of indexing data. They'll use log files to understand whether or not Googlebot crawls, etc. Those are all, great tools and useful tools, but the act of actually watching what Google's index does is very different kettle of fish to monitoring those specific data points. Yeah, and it's not a category that really exists except apparently me talking about it over and over again.
That's a good niche to carve yourself out, right? I think that's where so many of these good SEO tools end up being built out of, is like, no one else is doing this thing and we need to do this thing, so let's build ourselves a tool to do the thing. It's exactly how Also Asked happened with the development team here, and Mark was like,
yeah,
we're already using People Also Asked data in our strategies anyway, so let's make it easier for ourselves, let's build a tool. And I think you're doing exactly the right thing there with Indexing Insight, of like, nothing else is doing this, and it's a really helpful thing to know, so let's build a tool that does it. Because I think so many people rely on like Search Console, right? The page indexing report, and kind of like poke around on there, but it's fairly limited information in there, right?
So pre this tool, page indexing report was amazing. Do you remember? Were you around, Jack, for the old, like, not even the index report? Like it was like, it was so simple and limited.
Good question.
Like I remember those days. I've been doing it for 15 years. I remember those days, right? And when we got this page report, I was like, oh, whoa! Like you could dig into that. You could see all the like indexing data, not indexed. You can go into why it's not indexed. You can go use the URL inspection tool to like see a snapshot of the HTML that Google's indexed. You could, oh, this is amazing. Post Indexing Insight, I'm like, oh. There are lots of issues with. I mean, it's free. It's an amazing free tool. Don't get me wrong. It is really useful, and I do love that Google built it. I want to make that really clear up front, because what I'm about to say is going to sound like I'm being rather critical of the people who built it. I am not. I am being critical of I'm being critical of people using it who are working on a large website, using that data to try and diagnose complex issues, or trying to monitor with that tool. In my experience, I'll give you 3 examples, right? So number 1, right, and you can check this yourself, Jack, or anyone who's listening can check. Go into your Gmail. We know Google sends you emails. It's like, oh, there's these indexing problems in this site. They'll send you an email. Hey, there's a technical problem in the sitemap. It will never tell you when pages are actively being de-indexed. So going from indexed to crawled, currently not indexed. That's what happens when Google actively removes a page from being selected to be indexed. or indexed or not indexed, right? That's what happens. It goes from submitted and indexed to crawled, currently not indexed, okay? It will never email you or tell you that happens, ever, right? That's the first thing. Now, on large websites, this happens a lot. I've seen, like my research, we've seen hundreds of thousands of pages on certain domains just get de-indexed, within the space of a week, right? It would never alert you to that fact unless you stared at it on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. It would never tell you. That's number one. Number two, there's crawl current not indexed, discovered current not indexed, and URLs unknown to Google. Okay, URL unknown to Google does not mean that Google has never seen the page or the content or never crawled or indexed it. It means that it is the lowest priority, like it has zero priority in the crawling and indexing architecture of Google systems. And so sometimes when you check a page that's been live for a long time and it says URLs unknown to Google, it's not that they haven't seen or crawled it or indexed it. It's that they just do not care about it anymore. They have forgotten it. They do not. Gary Ilias literally told me that on LinkedIn. It's in my content, right? But funnily enough, in Google Search Console, if a page goes from indexed to crawled not indexed to discovered to URLs unknown, you will never see the URLs unknown to Google report. It puts it in the discovered report, right?
Right.
And again, this is a study I did on one of our sites, like 96% of them or something were URLs unknown to Google. Like to check each one manually and then download the sample data and then cross-reference with the data in the indexing insight because we can pull it at scale. And I was like, oh, like this isn't a discovered currently index report. This is a URLs unknown to Google report, but it's just that Google Search Console misreports that. Now, lots of people believe discovered is, it's going to crawl eventually. It's a crawling problem. I'm like, it's not a crawling problem. Google has decided to just actively forget and de-index those pages and now is giving it zero crawl priority, right? That's number two. And number three, there's no historic indexing data in Search Console. So you never know when crawl currently not indexed is full of pages that are actually removed, pages that are actually being crawled but are waiting to be indexed because they're new, or just technical errors because for some reason, over time, like a not indexed page will be put into that bucket. And it's roughly from our data, it's about 10% of those pages get put into that bucket. And so it's so this is a huge category of these different problems. And you've got and then you've got 1,000 rows sample URLs for each report. And then you've got to try and figure that out in that, and that's just like 3 examples off the top of my head I can give you. And how much time you waste trying to diagnose complex technical issues, going down the wrong rabbit holes. This is why I built the tool, my Index Insight tool, because we have a separate report that tells you when pages are actively removed. So we separate it out from crawled not indexed. So that's crawled previously indexed. We have a separate report for pages that are actively being forgotten. URL is known to Google, and separating that out with URL is unknown to Google, right? Because there are cases where, that does need to appear because that is true. But then again, Google's documentation doesn't make this clear, and the Googlers themselves talk about it, but sporadically on podcasts, on tweets, in conferences, and I'm just like, is it me? Like, am I the one who just wants to have a page that just describes some of these scenarios that happen? Like, so yeah, that's why I built the tool. So it saves me time. I can see what's going on. We can see really interesting things that happen, like the 130-day indexing rule. Like after 130 days of being recrawled, a page has a 99% chance of being de-indexed, right? But which basically means, in simple terms, the longer it takes for Google to crawl an index page, the greater the chance it gets de-indexed because, and we can talk about this later, what I call page quality issues, right? The signals around that page, around that site section, and it's just like, what's the point? Because nobody's visiting, nobody's linking to it, nobody's searching for it. So we're just going to actively de-index it or no longer select it for indexing. So it's not eligible for search results.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I remember reading your study about the 130-day rule, and like you said, focusing on that search quality side of things, like being aware of page quality of what people are linking to it? Is it being talked about? Is it actually receiving clicks or traffic or anything like that? Can you talk about that, kind of like what happens in that 130 days in a bit more detail? Like what goes into, from your research, from your data, like what it makes it more likely that a page is low quality versus high quality? What makes it more likely to be de-indexed or kept there?
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm gonna have to go down a few rabbit holes. So the first rabbit hole we will go down. So I'm taking you on a little adventure, Jack. Let's go down the first rabbit hole, which is page quality, right? So I talked about this in October 25, Brighton SEO. There's a slide deck somewhere in the universe, which you can go and have a look. But basically, I should probably have a link to it somewhere on my website. That's probably, as an SEO, I should do that. But basically, what I discovered, because I went down this rabbit hole and I'm like, right, if I'm going to explain why Google actively de-index pages on this 130-day rule, what is it? What does page quality? What does quality mean, Adam? Because I keep talking about it quite a lot in my content on this podcast, on LinkedIn, etc. So lots of people think that page quality means content quality, as in, oh, this content is good, right? There's a really good example from your own experience, Jack, the D&D website. Remember the D&D website? You've talked about this a lot with Mark. You and Mark did a study, right, where you put the content on LinkedIn or something and it ranked.
Yep. It was LinkedIn Pulse. Mark was able to basically use LinkedIn Pulse to just get stuff ranking instantly. Yeah.
Yeah. But it kept ranking, right? Like it because the D&D thing got hit. And people and you were getting like, oh, this is amazing content, right? So you and Mark assumed that the content quality should keep it ranking and effectively keep it indexed. That is not that's not what page quality means. What page quality means is in a search product, right? Are people searching for it? Number one, I'm assuming they are if it's D&D, because D&D is quite popular. Is the website got any links? As in, do people talk about it? And then do people engage and click on it? Right. Basically, again, I reference Mark quite a lot, but Mark found that site quality score via the hack. Candor did a hack or found a flaw in Google's system, and they pulled lots of data, and you found a site quality score, right?
Yeah, that was the endpoint data that we found through an also asked endpoint that basically gave like a bunch of Google called it an exploit, essentially, where it is a bunch of data that is not publicly available, including, as you said, a site quality score that was from 0 to 1. And unsurprisingly, the next like 100 inquiries Mark got were like, can you please tell me what my site quality score is? It's like, yes, sure. Like, let's just focus on that one number. Sure. That's going to solve all the
problems. Well, from my study and my research and looking at the data, I think what's interesting about page quality and that site quality score is it's made up of lots of different signals. I call them raw signals, and then there's aggregated signals, right? Lots of software does this. You have these raw data points, and then you can aggregate them into like computed signals, right? So page quality is that. Page quality from the DOJ trial documentation, from listening to Googlers, and then just looking at the actual data and performance of pages actively being de-indexed because we classify it and I can look at it. It seems to be, do this website, does this site section get traffic and get engagement and visibility in search, right? Then does it have links, internal links, backlinks, page rank effectively, nearest seed page rank it's called now, right? Do you have links from trusted pages, trusted domains? Now, interestingly, the homepage on your website, I believe, and someone might say I'm wrong, which is fine, but I believe the homepage is by default trusted, right? Which is why when you're doing internal linking, it's not just to get links from like backlinks from like the BBC or all these other massive authority websites. It's like, well, let's just look at your internal linking of your website and where are the authoritative links coming from. All right, well, how can we improve the internal linking naturally from pages that get traffic, that get backlinks, to the pages that are getting actively removed, right? And then it's just content relevance. Basically, this is more of a technical thing of, does the page and content look because this is the site quality patent that Mark looked at, right? It was like, does they map it out in like this really complex mathematical oh, look at this mathematical 4D chess game, right? And then just try and figure out, does this content look similar to what is currently in the topic? Right, yes, okay, then. Does it look like the other websites that we trust? Yes, okay. We're guesstimating, right, basically. But it seems to be that site quality and page quality, site quality is made up of pages, aggregated number, I believe, of pages, and the page quality is assigned to each document in the index, each page in the index, based on those three key things, right? And then again, it's a DOJ trial document like information, and then Google literally in the DOJ trial talk about it. They're like, yeah, our system works by us learning from the billions and I think I did a study on this, but there's billions and billions and billions of searches a day, billions, and like Bing is like millions. Like Google's site quality is the magic is based on past engagement. Okay, that's where page quality. It's just about the search product. Does the search get, does the user find what they're looking for? Is the content answering their question? All those things. That's what contributes to page quality and then site quality. Because another interesting thing, I'm going down rabbit holes. I apologize. I will answer the question of the 130 indexing rule. But the page quality isn't on just a page level. It's a URL pattern level. So Google will look at the quality of site sections based on the patterns it detects. That's why you can see Googlebot crawling lots of pages in a site section. Then Google kind of collects these signals and goes, not really worth our time, and it just drops. Same thing happens in indexing. If you start seeing huge numbers of pages drop out, it's usually based on site sections. And it's a real problem if those site sections are the largest part of your website, because that contributes to the site quality score. Because every page that is indexed contributes to that site quality score, in my opinion. And well, John Mueller said this, like he's literally said this multiple times, like our quality algorithms, the overall site quality is based on the index pages, not on the not index pages.
Yeah. So that site section, is that literally subfolders, or is that more to do with internal linking structure, or is it like, you mentioned the URL kind of
so
pattern, right?
Interestingly, it's kind of, I think it's based on URL patterns, but also site sections link to each other more often. So a blog will link to a blog more. A product categories will link to more product categories. Product pages will link to product pages. So people are like, oh, is it? Because Google have said they don't base stuff on URL on folder structure, but I think there's a very 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 old document that talks about like the principles of URLs. In that document, it talks about, well, people link to site sections all the time, so you might not have a very good solid logical folder structure in your URLs, but product pages will link to product pages in the maps and the nodes. So it's kind of the same thing basically when they discover and start crawling and processing the information, because they can start mapping it out as kind of like Screaming Frog visual charts. Similar things, the same kind of situation basically. It's either URL pattern level, or they detect it through the same kinds of pages they see through similar internal linking basically. But again, they just need to I think again Mark found like a patent that predicted quality. Like they can predict it based on all the other websites that they have historically indexed, and look at your website and eventually go, well, this isn't matching what we see that's quality, so we're just going to drop it. Because we know what's going to happen, because we've done it a billion times, right? So with back to your original question, sorry, I have to like add context, otherwise what I'm about to say doesn't make any sense. But the 130-day indexing rule, let's just go back to it, right? So let's say a fresh URL is indexed, right? You published a blog post, right? D&D, like, I don't know, whatever D&D topic you want to pick. And then you publish a new blog post on your D&D blog. Google will crawl it. So if it's a website that has people interested, gets people visited, has backlinks, has authority, as we say in the SEO industry, a high site quality score, Google will probably crawl index pretty quickly, right? And because of that, it's internally linked to one from other pages. People are finding it. You share it on social media. Hey, fantastic! It's probably going to stay in the index because people are engaging with it. There is demand for it, not just I'm going to hit publish and cross my fingers. You're actively getting people to engage with that content, publishing it. It's probably really good if you care about the subject. Let's say then you on another D&D blog, you hit publish, you do nothing, right? And the website has no real backlinks. Nobody really engages with the pages outside of maybe you get maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 pages of a 100-page website get any clicks and engagement through search, but you're not actively trying to market it. You're not trying to get people to visit the page, etc. You don't really rush the article. Well, Google will crawl it, and based on the signals over time. Now, here's the thing about 130 indexing rule: it's not a hard rule. It just, as time progresses, it's like a curve. It gradually gets to a point where, weirdly, after 130 days, 99% of pages, like 99.9% of pages, are not indexed in our data. And the way that we know that is we take the last crawl time, which you get out of the URL inspection API, we create a day since last crawl metric, and then we just map it over time and group pages based on last crawl time, the day since last crawl time metric, together in these buckets. And we just saw this. It wasn't our rule. Like, somebody mentioned it on LinkedIn, did research, it blew up, it got really popular, and I just confirmed it through millions and millions of pages that we monitored. And I was like, oh wow, this is an absolute rule. Like, yeah, this is like strong rule. And we created reports which we call the crawl coverage report. You can actually see which pages are going to get actively de-indexed based on that rule. And the reason why, Jack, is, and every time you dig into the data, and every time I dig into the data, it's because the pages are actively, no one engages them. There's no real search demand, as in nobody searches for it, because Google tracks that in terms of do these pages, does this content appear in different searches with query counting or session logs, right? And then just have the internal linking. Is it in a site section that has links, people visiting it from different angles in terms of Chrome visits and engaging with it, and do people search for the brand? But it's not just the page itself, it's also the site section and the domain itself. So lots of people always think about these things on a page level, but think about it as a pattern and a site overall. That is what probably causes your page to be actively de-indexed after 130 days. Sorry, very long-winded.
No, I appreciate the detailed answer, mate. I think that's a really important to give all of that context. And like you said, using our old D&D website, Death Saves, as an example there. Like, we had, I know, right? We were very proud of that. Using that as an example, you're totally right. We had great quality of our content and all that kind of stuff. But exactly as you were saying there, we were not getting those links from external sources. We were not getting that much traffic to the site really in terms of clicks. We were not getting significant coverage or backlinks or anything like that. And you can write the best content you can, but exactly said there are plenty of other factors that go into that can then cause significant issues. And I think, sorry, go on.
No, I don't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to add something to this as well, because it sounds like, because some people ask me this all the time when I'm working with customers. Oh, well, I just need to wait for Google to actively de-index my website, my bad pages then, right? Google's got my back, right? Right, Google's always got my back. And I'm like, I wouldn't do that. Because let's say Death Saves is on this axis in terms of, this is the axis, like in terms of demand, in terms of people actually caring. There's Death Saves, where nobody really cares, nobody really engages, right? And then there's massive brands, and there's everybody in the middle, right? As you get towards massive brands, another problem with large sites. It seems that, I talked about how site sections and site quality overall kind of impacts on whether pages stay in the index. Well, there's another phenomenon, which I think lots of enterprise SEOs deal with all the time, where index bloat happens, right? Where the actual authority of the domain keeps pages in the index that contribute to the site quality overall, that actually impact on the organic search visibility over time. I deal with and have dealt with a lot of index bloat, right? Because my tool is like, there's a lot of index pages here. And I'm like, and then these people start monitoring it and start seeing drops. I'm like, I'd really investigate this site section and see actually how many pages get traffic, get impressions, actually people visit it, etc. Because quite a lot of the time, the 130-day indexing rule is used as like Google will deal with it. And I'm like, I wouldn't there's this flaw in the system, so to speak. It takes 4 months, that's like 33% of the year. Lots of your index pages are going to stay there and they contribute to the overall site quality of your website. And that can be a big problem. Like if large sections of your site have incredibly low quality scores and remain indexed, and you this is the problem with AI slop or AI content, right? When you pump out even any kind of large scale content is pushed out. And by large scale content, I mean product pages, listing pages on real estate. If you don't manage it, it will drag your website down. And in fact, I've actually helped websites de-index or remove large index bloat, and it's actually seen a positive impact on their visibility and organic search traffic because they haven't waited around for Google to deal with it. Because I don't think their system is designed to deal with it, so to speak. There's a few flaws in it that basically, I just want to make that really clear because I think whenever I talk about it, people say it sounds like Google will deal with it. It'll actively remove it. And I'm like, it will. It's just taking its time, and it will. If you're not proactive about it, like death saves, for example, if you weren't proactive and you kept pumping out content and waiting for Google to de-index it, well, Google will take those signals, apply it to the pattern of the site section or site overall, and it could impact on your organic search visibility of the pages that are actually driving impressions, clicks, appearing in AI search. Because that's the other thing, quite a lot of AI visibility is based on whether I think lots of studies have done this, that you're based on how well you will perform in traditional search results or based on traditional SEO foundations. Well, if you're being dragged down by index pages that are overloading your website in terms of index flow, it's going to impact on your AI visibility. And again, I've seen people undo index flow and seeing a growth in AI visibility as well. So
that's really interesting. Yeah, it feels like the evolution of the thing. Quite a lot of sort of content-driven SEOs were saying a few years ago, of like, I deleted 100 blog posts and 10x'd my visibility and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Like the classic tagline, right? But I think you're totally right, because we're talking about things at scale here, right? We are obviously talking about huge websites. We're thinking about things like crawl budget and bloat and all that kind of stuff. That's when that stuff really matters. And I think, when we come to, a tiny little blog, take Death Saves as an example, or someone's little personal travel blog or whatever, where it's like, it's a few hundred pages, you're probably not going to see any sort of significant bloat or budget with that sort of scale, right? But I think you're right, again, but you could see the pages underperforming, affecting that overall site score. Am I right in thinking that?
So you are correct in scale, like, no qualms there. Just the way that I present it to customers and present it to people, and this is something I need to improve in the product, is think about it in terms of percentages, right? How many pages are indexed? Well, 80% of my website of the pages I care about are indexed. Okay, between 80 and 100% is good, right? You're always going to get some index fluctuations. You're always going to get pages that 404, soft 404, technical things here or there. But overall, 80% is good. Okay, how many of those index pages drive traffic, get clicks, have internal linking, get external links, etc.? You run some data. For one customer, or for one client, they had like 5% of their index pages drive traffic, 5% of the 80%, and we're talking millions of pages. And I was like, I think you need to identify what's important and what's not important, right? But this also applies to smaller sites, right? So yes, you're right. Like, oh, it's only a few hundred pages. And I'm like, well, what's the ratio here? Because if you have a 5-page website and your blog is 100 pages and your blog is lots of those pages are indexed, but they don't really drive anything, I'm like, well, Google is basing the site quality based on those index pages. So, I mean, again, I'm not saying delete them or remove them. I'm just making it very clear. I'm just making it very clear that it's the ratio that you need to think about. Think about it in these percentages of, oh, actually, maybe we need to, instead of 5%, maybe we need to bring down the number of index pages and deal with that bloat, and then improve that to like 10, 20, 30% of pages getting traffic, right? And again, I've done that and it's seen improvements. So it could work for small sites. It couldn't. I'm basically saying don't just, oh, I've got 10 pages on a 100-page website. I'm like, well, think about the pattern, think about the ratio, and then just think about the scale. That's the problem. That's how I'd put it.
Yeah, I really like that. I really appreciate that clarification, because I think, like you said, I think we get stuck in too much of, worrying about one thing or not worrying about another thing, and then we see a page indexing report in Search Console, and you see a bunch of pages that are stuck in the crawled but not indexed, or discovered but not indexed, and all that kind of stuff. And then even, as you were saying earlier, a bunch of other options for the different statuses of your pages. For me, I think there's almost a conversation as well, and this is kind of, I guess, taking a step back externally, of, I've seen a lot of people talking, especially when it comes to AI search, especially when it comes to things like programmatic SEO, when it comes to the scale that people are creating pages on the internet these days. Do you think it is now harder to get indexed, full stop? Like, is there more of a battle? Because I feel like the conversation I've had and have had a few times on the podcast as well is like, it's less about a fight for traffic. It's almost more about, are you actually going to get indexed in the first place? Are you feeling, from your study, from your data, are you feeling a similar kind of way, where there's even more of a fight to get indexed in the first place, let alone the next stage of getting traffic?
So this is an interesting question, because actually I have there's two ways I like to think about it. There's short-term indexing and long-term indexing, right? Short-term indexing, it's actually relatively easy to get indexed, in terms of I'm a new website, and I submit my sitemap to Google Search Console, and I hit submit and publish some content. Google generally, you got to remember, Google's being indexed or not indexed, it's not about you're in the index, you're in the database, right? It processes all this information. You can go and look into Google Search Console, go inspect your inspection tool on any not indexed page. You will get data back generally, unless it's being scrubbed because it's slowly being forgotten. But that's in the database. That's in the index. Indexed and not indexed is about being eligible to appear in search results. Are you being selected to be indexed? Are you not being selected to be indexed, to be shown in search results? That's what indexed or not indexed actually means. So short term, most small new websites will be eligible to appear in search results, right? Because Google's processing the information, it's understanding the site, and it will give you a chance. Long-term indexing is the actual problem. Because long-term indexing, Google has collected the signals. I think Ahrefs did a study, like 97% of the internet doesn't get any traffic or impressions. Like, that's the problem, right? So when I see people being like, oh, my content isn't being indexed, my pages aren't being indexed, I think it's just this long-term mindset of, okay, you've published 10,000 pages pragmatically. Okay, well, you kind of need to think about it more of like, you need to shift through the data and see what pages get demand. I have an experimental site where I tested, lots of this stuff, and some of those pages still get traffic and impressions. And it's a pragmatic built 2-day website that I shoved into the index using some index submitting tool, which I shouldn't do, but I was just interested to see what happened. and it got indexed really quickly and then got de-indexed very quickly because Google was like, yeah, this is clearly pragmatically built. But what's interesting is pages still get impressions and traffic to this day. 2 years on, they still get impressions and traffic. So I think it is. I could do work on the site and probably bring it back from the dead, so to speak. But I don't really want to because it's not. I don't know why it's indexed. It should be in there. But I think that long-term indexing is the actual problem when you're asking, is indexing a problem? I don't think indexing generally, I like getting indexed new pages. I think the problem is remaining in the index. Remaining eligible to appear in search results is the problem. That's the thing that's the shift you need to think about, because that shift can help you better understand and segment and look at your website in a different way. I'll give you one example. There's an SEO a German SEO, European, she messaged me being like, oh, your work's helped me understand the Google Search Result Page Links and Report better. I applied that thinking, and now I segmented our website by search demand, sorry. Very interesting. She did a talk on it in SMX Munich. Anchor, I think it's Anchor. I apologize, Anchor, if I butchered your name. I'm terrible with names. But she did this amazing talk where she talked about how she basically used a system to understand what pages were getting, because they saw this massive de-indexing of the site, and then core update happened, massive drop in traffic. Changed her mindset of, right, okay, search demand, page quality, things are being actively de-indexed. What do I need to do? Well, I look at, and then she did lots of research herself, and she found that, well, actually, if she segmented the website by demand, changed internal linking to point to those areas of the site that had demand, used analytics to kind of identify which pages need to be in that internal linking modules, saw an immediate change in indexing, saw an immediate traffic spike. That is long-term indexing thinking, because she's trying to prioritize what is actually working in search, rather than, I've got 2 million pages, I've got 5 million pages, how do I get them all indexed? Right? She's looking at it in terms of like, what do people actually look for? What do I need to do to improve it? What do I need to do to kind of use the SEO signals to help kind of prioritize what Google thinks is important, right? Because internal linking is important because it's part of page quality, it's part of that group of signals or multiple signals that make it up. And she saw a reverse in de-indexing, and saw an increase in SEO traffic. Like, I'll try and find the link to her talk, and I'll give you it, Jack. It's worth.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The deck itself is fantastic. So, and she messaged me saying, "Oh yeah, I know I had chats with her and stuff. And I want to turn her piece, her talk into a blog post, because I think it's an amazing example of long-term indexing thinking, and just applying the things that I talk about in my studies and blog posts and stuff. So that's an example of when you're saying it's harder to get indexed. I'm like, it is harder to get stayed to eligible to appear in search results. You just have to think about it in a different way. That's all.
That's really interesting. I really like that kind of short-term versus long-term thinking, because I think, again, so many of us get caught in that short-term bubble, right? Whether you're just like doing something dodgy and trying to make a quick buck. No judgment here. Plenty of people do that, but like, but if you're trying to, stick around and make a genuine e-commerce store, genuine content site, whatever it is, and like you said, stick around for the long term, I think that's a much more intricate and useful way of thinking about it, because I feel like you said, most people think about, and I'll lead into my next question, I guess, of like indexing as a single thing, as a single instance. So you are either indexed or you're not indexed, and then job done, problem solved. Like you said, you just push all your pages, you put them in a sitemap, and everything's problem solved. But actually, the long-term process of that, of like, actually Google might come back around. We mentioned the 130-day rule there as well. Like, are there any sort of common misconceptions people come up to you, talking about indexing insight, talking about your blog, they read your study and they're like, hold on, how did you come up with this? Or where did that come from? Are there the sort of common misconceptions you encounter when talking about indexing with other SEOs?
I think the common misconception is just getting your head around the page quality stuff, because lots of SEOs, I publish studies and people literally are like, I don't believe you. Like, you're not I think somebody was like, you're not categorizing these correct. Like, I categorize indexing problems into three areas, like quality, duplication, and technical, right? So technical and duplication are things that we can actively solve ourselves. Like, technical issues and duplication issues are actively solvable, right, by an SEO. In terms of taking action, generally speaking, of the pages that you care about, that you want to get crawled and indexed, and you want to appear in search and drive traffic and visibility and all those good things, right? Quality is huge. In every study I've done, in every like, I can see all the data in our tool, and I can see all the problems and categorize them, all the problems. Quality comes up like 80%. 80% of the pages that are indexed, hundreds, enterprise website, e-commerce website, hundreds of thousands of pages, or a website with like 50,000 pages, both have the same problem, in that Google actively is removing pages from its search results, right? And there's different reasons why that happens, but I think just the big misconception is quality and Google actively removing your pages and keeping pages in the index. Keeping pages eligible. Keeping pages eligible to appear in search results, being selected to be indexed, is a lot harder than people think. And because you don't monitor every day, you don't see it, because Google Search Console doesn't tell you. It just literally doesn't tell you. Literally does not alert you. Because if it did, they'd have like a billion emails a daily going, yeah, we've de-indexed 50% of your website. Sorry. Do you know what I mean? So that's the biggest misconception and misunderstanding, I think, about indexing data. It is dynamic. It is changing all the time. There is like there's a patent I did a blog post on it, managing URLs. It talks about an importance threshold, a benchmark score, right? And it changes all the time, right? And all your pages can jump in and out, basically. Well, not all your pages. It pages on this line, on this threshold, on the edge of this threshold line, on a daily basis. It can go up and down, and your pages jump in and out of being indexed and not indexed. We have a report in the tool that tells you which pages are fluctuating. And interestingly, every time there's a core update, quite a lot of people's pages fluctuate, because I think when they do a core update, lots of their signals get updated, the raw, like the aggregated one, the computed ones. And I think that changes the importance threshold that goes up and down, like the importance threshold, quality threshold, that makes that go up and down, right? So I think there's this, you're right. There's this common misconception that you set it and forget it. It's indexed. It's staying indexed. And I'm like, you have 130 days. It'll either remain or it'll get de-indexed. But it's, that's my, whenever I talk to anyone, everyone focuses on technical. Not many people, apart from Anchor, and again, I apologize, Anchor, if I'm butchering your name. Not many people focus on things like she did, where she's like, no, I'm going to think about it differently. I'm going to look at it in terms of search demand. And she, by the way, she segmented her sitemaps by search. The deck is amazing. She segmented her sitemaps by search demand, and she found like the majority of. That's a tip, by the way. It's a tip for you, Jack. Maybe take it back to your clients. Segment your sitemaps by seasonality or search demand. Like in e-commerce, segment categories and products by seasonality or search demand. Christmas, summer, spring, sales, whatever. Like sales, especially. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. And just you will see a huge, like if you put them all into a sitemap, separate sitemap, stick them all in another sitemap index, and separate them out from your actual pages that are always on in terms of seasonality and always on in terms of demand, you will see a difference in indexing, right? Because when people are kind of searching for them, they'll start to search for them, they'll come back into be index selected. There's nothing wrong with the content per se, usually, apart from maybe sometimes you don't link to it in the navigation, etc. But there's nothing wrong with the content. It's just the demand isn't there, so Google just doesn't select it to be indexed. right? And she saw that when she spread out her sitemaps. Those pages in demand all the time, 90% indexed. Those pages that are not in demand, less than 50%. And they'll fluctuate, right? And it's just that kind of thinking that Google Search Console doesn't tell you that. It just look at it, and it's just a window in the current time frame, and you're like, oh, all of my pages are, all of my sales pages aren't indexed. Oh my, what do I do? Submit. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I think you're wasting your time not prioritizing things like that. Like you're wasting your time trying to solve things that don't necessarily need to be solved.
Yeah, that's a really interesting. I've heard quite a lot of people obviously say split up your sitemaps into different sections, make smaller sitemaps much easier to crawl and make it much more digestible and all that kind of stuff. But seasonality is a really interesting thing. Funnily enough, I had an e-commerce client, I say 3 years ago now, and the ratio of revenue they did just from Christmas was absolutely insane. Like they had a particular product that was very Christmassy, and it absolutely smashed like all the other that category absolutely smashed. Like I think it was 3 times as much as the rest of the site put together was just like their Christmas products. Yeah, so usually. Funny enough, not really knowing this kind of context, but I was like, do a separate sitemap for your Christmas products. Mm-hmm. And we even obviously, talked about like, oh, do we just remove it completely from the main nav, all that kind of thing that you said, like you're removing internal linking signals and stuff like that. I was like, no. Don't just like put them, I can't remember what CMS it was on, but like, don't just put it back into a draft or whatever and like remove it or whatever. Leave that page up. But like you said, segmenting those little sitemaps and dividing it up. We had mostly category-based stuff. So it was like, different clothing types and all that kind of stuff. But then it was Christmas jumpers was this thing. And they did like the ugly Christmas sweater like trend basically. And they would just like absolutely blew up. And I was like, separate that little sitemap, create a Christmas specific sitemap. And you're right, that made a huge difference. Like,
well, just to be clear, like it also makes a difference in terms of your mental load of having to segment and analyze what's going on. Yep. Like I how many times have you got into a Google Search Console and go, cool, I'll filter by sitemap, and it's like there's one sitemap index.
And like you said, you're stuck with like 1,000 lines or whatever. Like you end up.
Oh, cool! Like 2 million pages on it. I mean, it's good to know. Like it is good to know the ratio of submitted and what you care about, and index pages that are unsubmitted. That is important, right? But in terms of analyzing, then what is important within that site section? Again, I've seen the benefits of breaking down site sections and page templates by sitemap, putting them all into an index, putting them into the page indexing report, and then being like, yeah, one of your site sections, it's like 20%. I call it index coverage, right? 20% of the pages are indexed, and there's like 300,000 pages. Like, we need to deal with this site section. Everything else I've got 80%. This section, unless there's something you're telling me these are the areas you care about, well, something is going on in that area, so we need to investigate. Just that. I am prioritizing. I am taking proactive measures to make sure that I understand what's going on, right? Unfortunately, Google will never alert me that those pages are being actively de-indexed. Indexing Insight will, but hey ho, at least I've tried to reduce the mental load of analyzing it. But yeah, anyway.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's reducing the mental load is another huge part of it, and just being able to segment stuff and be able to diagnose that much easier. Like we said, like you're not just stuck with like, here is a giant list of URLs. Good luck sorting all of that out. Just segmenting it out and being able to pick out, oh, there might be a problem in this section and might be a problem in that section. That saves you the job of, now I need to review 500 URLs or 1,000 URLs rather than 500,000 all in one go. Like that can be such a game changer in terms of the time you spend doing that. And I have been there personally, digging through all kinds of reports that are like, here's every page you've ever had on your website over the last 15 years. I'm like, oh God, okay, right. Yeah, let's dig through that.
I mean, that's a good point. Like the page index report also, just to be aware, it shows you everything past
and
the current state of your site. So I've seen one of the biggest reports is redirects because like millions of pages have been redirected. I'm like, cool. Like what? And some people like when you start analyzing, you're like, oh, I need like this is why you need sitemaps and filtering and page indexing because you can go down to the wrong rabbit holes very quickly because you need to just remember this is historic information, right? It's not just current. It's the historic what Google also has. It's just that it's not easy to analyze. Like you only really care about what's important right now unless you're doing site migrations or you're really digging into some diagnostic full audit that goes into the past of what happened on the website. But even then like I said, you get 1,000 rows, so 2 million pages of a redirect report with 1,000 rows is not going to help you. But yeah, anyway, it's complex.
Absolutely. Let's get into our last section then, shall we? Let's get into some recommendations.
Oof.
And what is one actionable thing you'd recommend the viewers and listeners to start doing today, Adam?
What can they do today? I honestly think the thing we talked about with sitemaps is probably, if I was going to give you one thing to do that was actionable, like if you wanted to just do monitoring indexing yourself, I would create sitemaps. So number one, so I'll be more specific. So what I would do is I create an overall sitemap index with all the sitemaps you have that you care about, right? That will give you an overall understanding very quickly of what is going on all the page and areas of the site that you care about. Then I would create sitemaps for different either page templates or site sections for e-commerce, category pages, sales pages, the product area, which is usually the biggest area, right? The SaaS, service pages, blog, resource section, any tools you have, like break it down because it will make your life easier to quickly analyze and just go right and then put them all and then create your own sitemap indexes of those categories of pages so you can quickly and then you submit them Google Search Console, all the sitemap indexes, and you can just quickly go down and filter very quickly in the page indexing report, and you can see, oh, there's index, not index, index, not index. I can dig into why pages. By the way, another fun fact, like you have to sometimes sort the why pages not indexed by largest pages because Google doesn't sort it by largest pages, which is really annoying. So you also have to sort it by largest pages when you go through those reports just to see what's going on. Just so you know, you probably biggest category will probably be crawl, current not indexed, discovered. If there's being a lot of active removal, because that's just what it is in Google Search Console. And then use that to, like we talked about, reduce the mental load on your indexing pages that you care about, and then try and dig into what is going on in terms of the ratio, right? What I call it index coverage, but it's basically percentage of pages indexed versus the total pages you're monitoring in that area. If your area is less than 80%, I would look into that. Because 80% is usually because of some technical errors. Maybe one or two things drop out naturally. They just do, like on any page, Google just drops them out. If you monitor stuff, you'll notice that. But yeah, that's what I would focus on. Just look at breaking down sitemaps, make a big sitemap of your whole site, and then as you go through, look at the percentage ratio of index pages versus versus total pages, and just understand the index coverage of each site section, and then dig into it and understand why. I'll tell you right now, it's probably usually because of what I call page quality issues, active removal of pages. But you can understand probably if you dig into the engagement of that page, the links to that page, maybe even look at the content versus other competitors, will probably give you an understanding of why those pages aren't indexed very quickly.
Nice. Appreciate that, mate. Next, recommend a tool or a piece of software you think deserves more attention. You can just say indexing. That's allowed.
Indexing Insight. Index Insight needs to be checked out. Yeah, no. Index Insight is a tool, like I said, that helps you monitor indexing at scale up to 1 million pages. The great thing about it is you can segment by site section. We have a segment by URL path, basically. So you can not just segment by a sitemap, but you can segment by web property. So you can submit all the sitemaps to us. We automatically download the pages on a daily basis. We use the URL inspection API and our web properties at scale to monitor at scale. So you can, and then you get a daily email alert. You don't even have to go into the tool. You literally in your inbox to understand what is going on in your site sections, basically. There's some case studies on our website if you want to check out what's happened. We've helped companies like T-Mobile and Indeed monitor Google indexing, and that's really helped them. So yeah, check out the website, indexinsight.com. And just there's a free trial as well if you 7-day free trial if you want to try it out and see what you think. No credit card required. Just check it out.
Nice. And last but not least, recommend something you've been enjoying recently. Not work related, no SEO stuff. If you've been enjoying a movie or a book or a video game or a podcast or a band, whatever it is, what you've been enjoying recently,
Adam? I'm trying to think. I have been enjoying. You know what? It's got sunny, and there's a wood outside my house, and I've been enjoying just because my son's only 2. You can now put him on my shoulders. I just enjoy going for a walk with my son through the woods, which is nice because it's nice and sunny and it's really nice coming through the trees. So yeah, I've just like getting out a bit more because I don't know about you, but it's been raining a lot in England. Like it's just been raining constantly in England. So yeah, it's nice to get outside, go for walks, not do SEO all the time, and enjoy time with my son and my wife. That's what I'm recommending right now. Everyone go for a walk. Wherever you are, just go for a walk. It's good for you.
Nice. You're not the first person to basically say touch grass on this podcast because I think, like you said, I think a lot of us get stuck inside too much. We're fiddle around with websites and
I don't want to recommend a book because all the books I read are business ones, and I just haven't really been reading a lot of my usual fantasy or sci-fi stuff at all in the last few years. And dealing with my son, like it's just been basically business, YouTube business, reading the SEO business stuff, building a business. So go outside and go for a walk is all I have.
Nice. Do you know, this is a fun little thing, do you know the Japanese word for light coming through tree leaves? There's like a specific word they have for like sunlight leaking through trees is how it translates.
I don't.
Komorebi is the word. Komorebi. Yeah, it's like it's KOMOREBI. So komorebi. I'm anglicizing that, and my Japanese is rusty as hell. But
we're both not great at saying names that aren't English yet.
But yeah, I love that. I have a book that is like untranslatable words, where it's like all different words from different languages that don't directly translate into other things. And I always think of that when I, like you said, walking through a forest. There's a lot of forests here in Norfolk. I grew up, in the countryside and stuff. So I always think of that when I'm having a nice walk in the sunshine through some trees. It's always nice.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, exactly. Just monitor your index and index insight, and then go for a walk. Literally, that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Leave all the hard work to me. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I've got it.
Gives you more time for walking through the trees and enjoying the sunshine. Lovely. Well, exactly. Thanks so much for joining me, mate. It's been a pleasure. How can people follow you? Check out Indexing Insight, and hopefully see you Search Knowledge Excel as well.
Absolutely, yeah, of course. Be going full details at Search Knowledge Excel about how Google indexing actually works. Because I missed out a lot of things. We don't have all the time in the world. Chat needs to go. I mean, we both need to go do work. But see, you can find me on LinkedIn, Adam Gent, and indexinsight.com is where I publish blog content. You can sign up to a newsletter. Like I said, you can get a free trial if you want to try out the tool or it seems interesting. Or you can just send me a message. There's an email on the indexinsight.com if you have any questions.
Amazing. Thanks so much, mate. It's always a pleasure to have a chat. Hopefully we won't wait like nearly 3 years to have another conversation.
I know, 2023.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jack. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And that wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much once again to Adam Gent for joining me. I have a feeling I'm going to get Adam back on the show more often than once every 3 years. That's definitely the plan. We're not going to wait until 2029 to have another conversation on the podcast. And a huge thank you to you for watching or listening, wherever you're watching or listening. I will be back next week with more fun discussions, interesting topics. I've got a few fantastic guests lined up over the next few weeks, and Mark Williams-Cook and I will be back in the studio very soon talking about all the latest SEO news, and I'll have more members of the Candour team joining me on the show very soon as well. Like I said, I'll be back next week. I hope you have a lovely week. If you haven't already, do go and, like I said, like, subscribe, follow, all that kind of stuff. Go and check out Search Norwich XL if you want to come and join us in September right here in Norwich. And until next week, have a lovely week, and thanks very much for joining me. See you then.